because of the whole music in thing, but I've just been taking the hit. But that leads me to my next point, whereas you can get the video, like you can react to the music or anything else without being copyrighted, but you just kind of have to pay the price for that. And by pay the price, I mean like your subscribers and people viewing may not enjoy your reaction as much if you don't have the full clip or anything, because to avoid copyright, you're gonna have to chop up the video and delete parts of the video like 5-10 seconds in between, like every 30-second increment, because you can only have 30 seconds of something like a song or in the video completely before it gets copyrighted. It's kind of confusing to explain, but what I was trying to say before is you tap.
I'm just gonna kick me out. Am I still alive? I know if I'm alive. Just let him know. I could be old. And there's me. Just somebody's watching. Creepy. Can I see the chat? Do I go into it? What do I do here? Oh, that's weird. Can I see the chat? Do I go into it? That's weird. Yeah. So I guess I should go ahead and know it's me. I can hear myself talking. Jesus. Am I the one watching? It's just like a time loop. Okay. I'm pretty sure. Oh, I'm supposed to be like somewhere to see the chat. Over here. Yeah. To see the chat. Over here. Chat. No. Send your inappropriate messages. So, I don't know what the plan is. I don't have a plan. But, I can tell you that I'm going to try to watch some YouTube videos and talk about it. Maybe not too many, but a couple. Oh shit, I need to keep this picture. So you can see what I'm watching. I'll probably just finish this. Nobody's watching, but I'll probably just finish this fucking. How do I share this thing? Can I tweet this shit? There it is. Alright, so if you want to say something, I will keep the live chat open somehow. There we go. Oh yeah. Now we're going pro. We're running out of space. Cool. Now we're in business. So I was watching this Peter Coffin video. I just think it's incredible. I like all of his work. Anything exciting? This is good. I think I'm going to save that. I'll watch later. This hasn't been working very well. Let's check it out.
Hey, it's Greg!
So this is my...
What up, Gregors? That's what I call my fans, you Gregors.
How's the audio?
That means it's costume vlog. Hey, it's Greg! What up, Gregors? That's what I call my fans, you Gregors. It's Halloween! That means it's costume vlog time. So that means I'm right here video logging my costume. This year I'm going as Will.I.Am Wallace. I think that's how you say his name. I don't know. Check this out. Oh, I ate a baby. Anyone have any haggis? You can take our freedom, but you can't take my swamp. Let's get this video to 500,000 likes, smash that subscribe button, and ring that notification.
I don't know if you guys have seen Peter Coffin yet, but he is always vying for my favorite YouTuber. I don't know.
Greg isn't Scottish. Greg is white.
This is Ashley, his wife. They're so amazing. So he has this very important documentary series. I highly recommend all of them.
Is a Gaelic festival marking the end of the harvest season. It likely has roots in Celtic pagan traditions and was widely celebrated on October 31st throughout Ireland, the Isle of Man, and Scotland. Freedom!
It's probably possible for me to put this line in straight in. I don't know. I'm being more worried about echo. This is the best we got, people.
You are so cancelled.
Oversimplified historical account time! Christianity first took root in the British Isles between around 40 AD to around 400 AD, when they were occupied by the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire obviously didn't last, though, but Jesus had legs. Sometime between the 8th and 9th century, the church moved two of its holidays. All Hallows Day was to be observed November 1st, and All Souls Day, November 2nd. Given its proximity, Samhain was repurposed and renamed All Hallows Eve, which was also often called Hallows Evening, which Irish and Scottish people pronounced Halloween. I can't imagine the day happening without the weans out telling jokes for the snacks.
Other people's
surprisingly good. Absolutely not case.
Culture is not your Halloween costume. My Twitter followers are going to love to hate this.
Skip all the way to September of 2018, around a month before contemporary Halloween. There is another yearly observance looming: Hallow Outrage.
The left has decided that it must set some standards, however, and the standard for white people is you cannot dress up as anything but yourself or an inanimate object. You can dress up as like a Rubik's Cube. Like, that would be a good thing, or a spoon. Like a spoon would be good. And the attempts to paint everyone who is not willing to fall for this microaggressions culture as racist, that is the serious problem, and it's why people are rejecting this nonsense wholesale.
September provides something of a warm-up for the content mills of the world to prepare for a cynical cash-in.
This is amazing.
By redirection of anger for money. It allows them to dip their toes in and test the waters. This September, delivered. Megan Barton Hansen, a seemingly famous person, got into some hot water for sharing a photo of herself on Instagram with her hair done in dun-dun-dun cornrows. Also, Post Malone is wearing a kilt in the photo, but let's just confine the Scottish stuff to the Greg Vlogger segments that someone's eventually going to complain are annoying anyway. An article about this particular controversy attempts to explain why people get angry about cultural appropriation by quoting the Oxford English Dictionary, which added the phrase in 2017. It defines cultural appropriation as the unacknowledged or inappropriate adoption of the customs, practices, ideas, etc. of one people or society by members of another and typically more dominant people or society. The article goes on to quote a site called everydayfeminism.com to make a distinction between cultural exchange, which is described as more mutual. Everydayfeminism.com refers to a particular power dynamic in which members of a dominant culture take elements from a culture of people who have been systemically oppressed by that dominant group. The main article goes on to say, the problem arises when somebody takes something from another less dominant culture in a way that members of the culture find undesirable and offensive. The point is that the more marginalized group doesn't get a say, while their heritage is deployed by someone in a position of greater privilege, for fun or fashion perhaps, and out of a place of ignorance rather than knowledge of that culture. To its credit, this article at least does more than lazily rely on the term's popularity and lasting controversial discourse for the clicks. But even as it does do work in providing context beyond people are for fun or fashion perhaps, and out of a place of ignorance rather than knowledge of that culture. To its credit, this article at least does more than lazily rely on the term's popularity and lasting controversial discourse for the clicks. But even as it does do work in providing context beyond people are mad at cultural appropriation, the logic in the definitions provided seems to be saying Megan Barton Hansen didn't make that up. It's not hers. And while that's certainly true by the standards of a capitalist state, without context, much of the popular concern of cultural appropriation does kinda sound like it's an intellectual property concern. Is it just marginalized people being offended because the whites are copycats? Haggis, 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 haggis.
I'm so pissed this guy is ripping off other cultures. You know, I saw a genuine black tweeting that this is bad, so I just started tweeting that it's bad too. And I'm getting so much engagement. Look at these retweets. I just hate when white people steal from marginalized people.
I do think that offense one's culture feels stolen is valid. Not that my opinion on other people's feelings is really that vital. What I want to talk about is that offense is a reaction or a response. More specifically, what to? Well, it offended a lot of people when Elizabeth Warren put out a definitely not a 2020 campaign video / 23andMe brand deal, so let's look at that. Elizabeth Warren is not particularly Native American. I mean, there's strong evidence she's at least 1,024th Native American, but I suspect it's not so much the claim, more what can be done with it. Low as the number may be, there is a certain cynical potential in the claim that could even generate profit. Although Trump went back on it, the most obvious potential exchange is a hypothetical fiat one. A direct offer that if Warren had Native American blood in a DNA test, he'd give $1 million to charity. Now, that was a bluff and she called it, but the roots of capitalism run deep. This is where social capital makes its appearance, as she is now, DNA test, he'd a direct offer that if Warren had Native American blood in a DNA test, he'd give $1 million to charity.
Wow.
Now, that was a bluff and she called it, but the roots of capitalism run deep. This is where social capital makes its appearance, as she is taking a hit for charity, so noble, and willing to do anything to resist/persist. Such a nasty woman, right? But like nasty woman in the Democratic Party branding sense. I think that's how the potential to profit socially becomes more obvious. It also yielded a campaign ad. An ad for a campaign. I know it doesn't say Warren for whatever in whatever year, but it certainly functions that way, does it not? I think that established some form of ownership, even if minuscule, of a product of social labor, a culture, maybe was appropriated in service of a bottom line. In a similar fashion to how hard capital exploits generations of hard labor, Warren showed up to echo this in a social context. There's also the whole genocide thing, which is something the Europeans did to Native Americans that was instrumental in reproducing the property dynamic. Basically, the whole thing reeks of appropriating a people and their culture to place oneself in a socially and possibly monetarily.
Hold on. I'm missing that. What's up, person? Lurker. Say hey. I'm pretty good. Oh. That's a little bit harsh there. Alright, let's try this. Hey, what happened? I was kind of liking that. What the fuck?
Becomes more obvious. It also yielded a campaign ad. An ad for a campaign. I know it doesn't say Warren for whatever in whatever year, but it certainly functions that way, does it not? I think that established some form of ownership, even if minuscule, of a product of social labor, a culture, maybe was appropriated in service of a bottom line. In a similar fashion to how hard capital exploits generations of hard labor, Warren showed up to echo this in a social context. There's also the whole genocide thing, which is something the Europeans did to Native Americans that was instrumental in reproducing the property dynamic. Basically, the whole thing reeks of appropriating a people and their culture to place oneself in a socially and possibly monetarily profitable position, which, might I add, I do not see as an ideological move at all. It is, however, something that I think concerns the relationships of production. Let's go back to commodities and cultural quote-unquote exchange. I wonder if by rigidly defining cultural exchange as good and cultural appropriation as bad, we complete the transformation of culture into property, and property is something good people exchange and that bad people steal. If culture is simply a kind of property, then all we need to understand how to acceptably interact with it in a capitalist state is property law, which sounds a bit dangerous to me, because not only has all property law screwed those without power or capital in the past, intellectual property law has been pretty effectively deployed to, subjugate the cultural product of marginalized groups. Cultural exchange also sounds a bit like the application of market norms to yet another aspect of human interaction, transactionalizing even more facets of our lives. Remember, in neoliberal
Man. The only thing I don't like about this dude is sometimes he gets a little bit heady. Little bit. That's okay. I like Hetty. I'm gonna try this part one more time.
The state is people steal. Bad, we complete the transformation of culture into proper. Europeans did to Native Americans, its generations of hard campaign ad. An ad for a campaign. I know it doesn't say Warren for whatever in whatever year, but it certainly functions that way, does it not? I think that established some form of ownership, even if minuscule, of a product of social labor. A culture, maybe, was appropriated in service of a bottom line? In a similar fashion to how hard capital exploits generations of hard labor, Warren showed up to echo this in a social context. There's also the whole genocide thing, which is something the Europeans did to Native Americans that was instrumental in reproducing the property dynamic. Basically, the whole thing reeks of appropriating a people and their culture to place oneself in a socially and possibly monetarily profitable position, which, might I add, I do not see as an ideological move at all. It is, however, something that I think concerns the relationships of production. Let's go back to commodities and cultural quote-unquote exchange. I wonder if by rigidly defining cultural exchange as good and cultural appropriation as bad, we complete the transformation of culture into property, and property is something good people exchange and that bad people steal. If culture is simply a kind of property, then all we need to understand how to acceptably interact with it in a capitalist state is property law, which sounds a bit dangerous to me, because not only has all property law screwed those without power or capital in the past, intellectual property law has been pretty effectively deployed to, subjugate the cultural product of marginalized groups. Cultural exchange also sounds a bit like the application of market norms to yet another aspect of human interaction, transactionalizing even more facets of our lives. Remember, in neoliberal capitalism, the more something resembles a market, the better it is. By those standards which I think smell like butts, culture is essentially required to be an exchangeable product to be considered valid. Which, coincidentally, would mean the various cultural products would also become commodities, at least if we're taking a situational Marxian approach, and I am, more on that in a moment. But first, Karl Marx defined commodities as goods and services created for the purpose of exchange, as well as things not created for that purpose but instead appropriated for it. Seeing as the word appropriation is half of the total words used to say cultural appropriation, I bet you can figure out where I'm going with this.
You are going to do the smart, right thing and tell people exactly what is and isn't acceptable so they know specifically what they are and aren't allowed to do. Also, you're going to call people who don't follow these rules irredeemable and cast them aside, right?
Why would I do that?
To establish what's merit-worthy according to the left? We need to tell people what to do if we expect them to be good.
No, we aren't in charge of what is good and bad. In fact, the point is to try not to be in charge, but rather distribute power as fairly as is humanly possible. I'd like to argue that in capitalism, cultural appropriation is a society's absorption and transformation of outside culture that the society's base, or the means and relationships of production, needs to function as subordinate to itself to maintain the status quo. In this context, cultural appropriation is a specific, systemic act of subjugation rather than a moral or ideological musing. Keeping in mind how conquered people become assimilated and how that is looked at as an ideal, more meaning can be gleaned. Now, early Britain was not capitalist, but I think looking at the Samhain gleaned and how that is looked at as an ideal, more meaning can be gleaned. Now, early Britain was not capitalist, but I think looking at the Samhain situation through the lens of base and superstructure can help make it more clear what I'm getting at. Sometimes you'll see what happened referred to as Christianization, but I consider it part of a larger trend. Changing Samhain into All Hallows Eve and eventually Halloween reshaped the cultural ideology of the society, which ultimately helps to maintain the base order. Again, I'm not going to give an extensive historical account, but there's a similar reason for why William Wallace and the army he commanded in the First War for Scottish Independence are remembered, even if not entirely accurately, as symbols of a fight against subjugation. Both Samhain's repurposing and mainstreaming as Halloween and William Wallace's this are examples of the repurposing of culture for those with power to benefit. Anti-authoritarian Marxist and founder of the Situationalist International, Guy Debord, said a lot of things I think become applicable if we're willing to start talking about culture as commodity, and I think in this particular stage of capitalism, we have to. In the founding manifesto Debord authored, Report on the Construction of Situations, he talked about the rigged arena of official culture. Culture that is canonized as or transformed to be useful, good, or worthy is made official, receiving institutional support, and therefore social legitimization. He believed that institutions' default prerogative was therefore the denial of anything deemed subversive from the public discourse unless trivialized and or sterilized. This was much of the function of what he dubbed unless was therefore the denial of anything deemed subversive from the public discourse and therefore social is made official, receiving institutional support, and therefore social legitimization. He believed that institutions' default prerogative was therefore the denial of anything deemed subversive from the public discourse unless trivialized and or sterilized. This was much of the function of what he dubbed the spectacle. In Society of the Spectacle, Debord wrote, "In societies where modern conditions of production prevail, life is presented as an immense accumulation of spectacles. Everything that was directly lived has receded into a representation. The spectacle's presentation is simultaneously as society itself, as a part of society, and as a means of unification. It is, in reality, the domain of delusion and false consciousness. The unification it achieves is nothing but an official language of universal separation. The spectacle is, therefore, a thorough reduction of the human experience, and what Debord called the concentrated form of it imposes a bureaucratic dictatorship on the people, which then appropriates their social labor. The commodity the bureaucracy appropriates is the aggregate of social labor, and what it sells back to the society is that society's wholesale survival. The dictatorship of the bureaucratic economy cannot leave the exploited masses any significant margin of choice because any choice made independently of it, whether regarding food or music, appropriates their social labor. The commodity the bureaucracy appropriates is the aggregate of social labor, and what it sells back to the society is that society's wholesale survival. The dictatorship of the bureaucratic economy cannot leave the exploited masses any significant margin of choice because any choice made independently of it, whether regarding food or music or anything else, amounts to a declaration of war against it. This dictatorship imposes an image of the good which subsumes everything that officially exists. Social labor in the context of the spectacle is all actions that work to construct the images which are used to mediate people's relationships with each other and the world. What would we call the creation of culture within spectacular capitalism, if not social labor? And why might that culture, or an already existing culture, be subsumed, mangled, and presented in a way that distorts its original purpose? Could it be, even if only partially, that its original existence functions to present an alternative to official culture, the spectacle, cultural hegemony, custom reality, the matrix, or whatever you want to call the alienating, co-opted existence we all wake up to every morning?
No, it's just bad to use other people's culture and stuff. It's just super problematic, like something someone who didn't go to college would do. It's not cool. There's nothing more to it, and there's no economy or analysis. People just suck.
Freedom!
Stop!
Samhain and Braveheart are examples of imperial and what we might call today evangelical cultures attempting to incorporate elements of a native culture as a means to dominate, whether that be directly or at market. It's not just that the original culture was copied, but that meaning has been intentionally distorted to suit a purpose. Samhain is Halloween now in the eyes of most of Western culture. William Wallace is a failed blue man wearing a kilt over very minimal leather armor, but god damn it, he was free. Freedom is cool. America. Wait, Scotland. Actually, America. America! These pieces of culture were appropriated to specific ends, and while people should obviously be allowed to participate in Halloween and watch Braveheart, we are rarely given a full critical context. Braveheart is actual history that was transformed and repackaged as dramatic, action-packed fiction that somehow manages to play on the exotic stereotype of native people while not forcing an alien regard. The movie also panders to the sensibilities of American exceptionalism, so people would pay money to see a film that simultaneously seems cultural and also validates their beliefs. Halloween was originally a pagan harvest festival. Then it was a means to get people to stop resisting Christianity, and now, well,
Halloween. May the best house win. Party City. Oh, it's on. Now at Party City, shop new animatronics.
When we talk about cultural appropriation around Halloween, we usually don't talk specifically about Halloween itself as an example. But in doing so, we can create a context that might make it easier to more critically examine the motives of, say, traditional Native American or African attire as costumes, whether for Halloween or otherwise. Maybe even Chinese dresses. In a contemporary context, at least part of the motive for appropriation of culture is profit. But profit itself is a means to what?
Alright, time for some real vlog talk, guys. Braveheart is a movie, and I just love movies. So, movies are great, right? Movies are like my lifestyle. I'm so glad movies are around. I wouldn't even have anything to do with my time if they weren't. Endless movies, good and bad, meaningful and meaningless. Images of experience with no material effect on my circumstances. Circumstances that I have no real awareness of because I don't corroborate my experience with peers. I have no peers. I am peerless. I am an individual. I am the best. And, a movie called Clerks corroborated my experience for me.
Okay, Greg's right on one.
So, if people are always performing labor that creates culture and the state has a carefully curated culture, dubbed official, that maintains the established power structure at the base levels of society, what's the problem? Well, the state and society dependent on it view culture that is not dependent on it as a threat, as it presents a different structure. That structure could simply be set up similarly, but occupied by different people, or it may present alternate organizing strategies altogether. Either way, it's taken as, or it may could dependent on it. Well, the state and society dependent on it view culture that is not dependent on it as a threat, as it presents a different structure. That structure could simply be set up similarly, but occupied by different people, or it may present alternate organizing strategies altogether. Either way, it's taken as a challenge to a reality endorsed by the system. History does not look kindly on conquerors and destroyers, especially in a status quo that views itself as inclusive and nonviolent, even if it is incorrect. To preserve that self-perception, instead of destruction, the system's aggregate consciousness works to sanitize and make useful. Representation of a culture is created that the average citizen will find acceptable, which makes people of that culture acceptable as well, assuming this person fits within certain parameters. This should contextualize the phrase, one of the good ones, in an unpleasant light. The original condition of conquered people is made alien. They must express parts of their culture to conform to expectation, but they must all make fits even if it is incorrect. To preserve that self-perception, instead of destruction, the system's aggregate consciousness works to sanitize and make useful. Representation of a culture is created that the average citizen will find acceptable, which makes people of that culture acceptable as well, assuming this person fits within certain parameters. This should contextualize the phrase, one of the good ones, in an unpleasant light. The original condition of conquered people is made alien. They must express parts of their culture to conform to expectation, but they must also act out the norms of a culture they had no part in the creation of, a culture built more or less by an elite through an aggregation of their influence. A descendant of a conquered people is, in an abstract sense, forbidden from wholly embracing either culture. For instance, if a black person is too black, white people raised to embrace the norms of a state that finds independent culture to be a threat may regard them as such. But if a black person is too white, they can also become alien to their own culture, doing things like hugging Donald Trump, a guy who dog whistles about quote-unquote gang violence in your hometown of Chicago. Like, what the fuck is this? This doesn't make any sense to anyone. The sanitized version of culture becomes something to exchange for social and hard currency. I have black friends is often heard as a defense for charges of racism, but it is as much a means for a white person in some areas of the country to paint themselves as interesting and cultured. Black people might be accepted to alternately perform white culture and or a sanitized version of their own culture, which is something they might even be alienated from for acceptance, or even for a place in the business hierarchy. Meaning is lost for the sake of order. Order is established for the sake of wealth and power. And the number of people who have high positions in the power structure who profit from black people expressing themselves and their culture is quite high. We see commodities built on a sanitized version of Native American culture all the time as well. Then there's that prom dress.
Oh, how could I forget that? I've never seen a more hideous display of racism in my life, including all the stuff my history teacher told me.
Honestly, outrage over this issue is warranted. However, why blame the entire system on a high school kid?
Oh, come on. Age is no excuse. You will never find anything problematic from when I was a teenager. Thanks, tweetdeleter.com.
This kid was apparently pure evil for wearing something with a lot of history in it, which, what the fuck? How is that bad? How is being a kid and simply liking something, not having been given the context to understand the commodification or even what a commodity is, let alone the sanitized representation that might simultaneously be used to assimilate and establish an intangible form of separation? How is that worthy of nationwide hatred? How is a young woman the appropriate target for mass criticism of the imperialist colonialist nature of Western society?
I never wore this dress for the intention of cultural appropriation or racism. I wore it to show my cultural appreciation.
Attacking individuals for not understanding the context of oppression and exploitation that intertwines with the commodification of a cultural product just doesn't help. I mean, it's hollow outrage again, isn't it? It's a tradition, a cycle. What is more pertinent, I think, is that the imperial forces of times past would be discussed as monstrous or evil if they were prominently and simply on display in today's world. Sensibilities towards that outward strategy of domination and destruction have changed, but these forces do not simply disappear, they change as well. Instead of violent subjugation, there is careful and deliberate incorporation. What is radical is made aesthetic, while the roots of the status quo spread deeper and deeper. At least here in the US, they're kinda actually doing Ender's Game now, with video game bombs dropping all over the place, so there's that. When I think of Will.I.Am Wallace, I think about freedom.
Never would have guessed that.
And when I think about freedom, I think of all the amazing creativity you guys, my subscribers, the Gregors, give me the ability to do. I just hope I inspire you and make you realize one day that the only thing holding you back is you. After all, success here in the vlog space is simply allowing whatever makes you interesting to be appropriated and commodified.
So, all I have to do is identify all the things about me that would at least seem to pose a threat to the power structure if suddenly everyone copied me, build a reputation on that, then stop, Don't call for any action that disrupts the system. Start specifically criticizing symptoms of underlying problems and blaming individuals. Oh, I already am.
Much of what exists in mainstream Western culture
Don't call everyone caught me that would
modified.
So, all I have to do is identify all the things about me that would at least seem to pose a threat to the power structure if suddenly everyone copied me, build a reputation on that, then stop. Don't call for any action that disrupts the system. Start specifically criticizing symptoms of underlying problems and blaming individuals. Oh, I already am.
Much of what exists in mainstream Western culture has already been through a process like this. A massive amount of our culture was created specifically for exchange purposes, and in some respects this is unavoidable. The system we live in is, after all, capitalist. It's built around commodities and markets. That we are socialized to exist in such a world abstractly demands we act in a way that protects and progresses these modes of operation. Also, our survival is rooted in our ability to perform the actions the system more overtly demands. People aren't bad for not understanding what function called them. Our survival is rooted in our ability to perform the actions the system more overtly demands. People aren't bad for to exist in such a world abstractly demands we act in a way that protects and progresses these modes of operation. Also, our survival is rooted in our ability to perform the actions the system more overtly demands. People aren't bad for not understanding what function cultural appropriation may have if a more specific analysis is applied. People are kept away from context and encouraged to blame each other for the problems of the world. When marginalized people become justifiably angry over their own culture being commodified, bought, sold, and consumed as if it's merchandise, even the anger itself is appropriated and ultimately commodified. I'm not saying that all white people's concern over cultural appropriation is fake, because I don't think that. Otherwise, what the hell is this whole thing? I do, however, think the context white people have provided makes it difficult to understand what is actually going on. I'm not even going to say for sure that what I've presented here is exactly what's going on. I just wanted to try and analyze the phenomenon using Marx and Debord's critiques. Also, I think nothing will change as long as there's no ongoing analysis of capitalism's imperial mode of operation to inform the kinds of actions we need to be taking. Finally, and most importantly, if this is ever going to change, we desperately need to build solidarity. But we can't do that by simply ignoring the issues people have in society as it is today. These concerns interact with capitalism, and therefore we should be able to map them onto our goals. Instead of simply saying class struggle would fix everything, implying that's all we should care about, we need to show exactly how these things are all related to class struggle. The work can be done to connect these concerns and build a movement or many movements that listen to and account for everyone's problems while taking collective action. So, could we do that, then? Whatever side of the political spectrum we need to show exactly how these things are all related to class struggle. The work can be done to connect these concerns and build a movement or many movements that listen to and account for everyone's problems while taking collective action. So, could we do that, then? Whatever side of the political spectrum you might be on, I think it's fair to say that for a long time the conversation has not been able to get beyond offense. It's not up to me whether or not people get offended about things. It's also not really my business. Like, nobody needs my permission, and if I get to criticize people on their morality, I'm simply imposing my own. And that's really not what I'm here to do. Leftists, on the other hand, myself included, must further some form of broad, inclusive analysis, mapping a path between as many of the people's concerns into a cohesive movement against the system as we can. The material conditions that marginalized people are offended by don't exist in a vacuum. Even if capitalism didn't necessarily create every one of these issues, they exist in capitalism, and they are of capitalism. Now, this means capitalism can't fix them, which in turn means liberalism can't fix them. The market isn't going to work to ensure that culture is not a conduit to exploit or subjugate people. The market simply incentivizes what generates profit. It's clearly given the worst among us free rein to oppress and exploit as they please. The market isn't going to work to ensure that culture is not a conduit to exploit or subjugate people. The market simply incentivizes what generates profit. It's clearly given the worst among us free rein to oppress and exploit as they please. To tell you what we need, for real, I'll appropriate a commodified, pre-appropriated fabrication in the form of popular historical fiction, as will I am Wallace by no honest historical account. Often said, we need freedom!
Amazing. Incredible. This list is growing. I mean, wow. I don't even know what to say. Like, I thought I would be talking a lot more, but how do you even comment on something like that? Good God. Incredible work. Thanks again. You get my big thumbs up, smashing that thumbs up on that one. That was impeccable. So glad I watched that. Lots of thoughts. I'm really glad he pointed out the fact that even the anger that oppressed peoples are experiencing is being commodified. That's so legit. That, you know, that we have these keyboard warriors, and again, this is coming from someone who is a social justice warrior, but there are people who they like jumped down that girl who wore that Chinese dress. They like jumped on her, and you know, again, it is like there is like a decision about the way we're framing this conversation about cultural appropriation that's excluding systemic critique. You know, that we could talk on the media about, oh, this outfit is so bad, and that these people who did this are so bad, but it's not going to that next layer where what parts of our system are commodifying culture and driving, yeah, I mean, guess what? I mean, it's capitalism, but like how the profit motive is disruptive of cultures, and we're not going to find a free market solution to protecting cultures. It's the opposite. It's great stuff. I don't know. Hope you enjoyed it. I guess I'm probably gonna wind it now. I'll be on it an awful lot. Thanks for hanging out, person. I'll probably do this more often. This wasn't too bad. I mean, yeah. Go on my Curious Cat, give me anonymous feedback if you want. It's somewhere. Yeah. Cool. Thanks for watching. We'll talk more soon. I gotta get some sleep and then I gotta hit work tomorrow. But yeah. I don't know if I'll leave this up or just delete it, but I'm gonna do this more often. Hopefully I'll talk more next time. I was just kinda like blown away by that. Incredible work. Thanks again. Peter Coffin. Follow him on Twitter. Everything's great. The Smear Talker documentary is awesome. So this overpopulation documentary too. They're all really good. And if you don't watch Philosophy Tube, this one right here, this Witchcraft, Gender, and Marxism, is like really good. Oh, and if you haven't seen Joana yet, you gotta check her out. She's insane.
Hey guys, so just another quick impromptu intro. I just wanted to say thanks for 500,000 subs. We hit 500,000 on Friday, which is absolutely insane. Also, I'm aware that this video is ridiculously long. I don't expect you to watch the whole thing. The next video is probably going to be a following a Bob Ross painting tutorial. I also know that you guys have been asking for that, so I will do one. You're just going to have to...
She's amazing.
Do you have a moment to talk about our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ? It's water. Hello everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today, we're gonna do a Q&A. Some of you guys have been asking for one, so I thought I'd grace the internet with this horrid video. I asked you guys to DM me some of your burning questions, and I'm gonna answer all of them right now. And if you're wondering where I am right now, I'm in my parents' room because I'm just done trying to figure out the lighting in my room. It never looks right. First question. Hi, Joanna. Okay, so a question I have for your Q&A is, when did you start painting? I taught myself how to paint. YouTube was actually really helpful in that sense. There are quite a few tutorials on YouTube, and you can get a lot of knowledge by watching someone else paint. So if you're ever looking to start painting, but you're not really willing to go to classes, definitely watch YouTube videos. I actually started painting more as a hobby, I'd say in grade 10. My paintings back then were really bad. Really bad. 1 second. What is this exactly? What was I thinking? And why did I think it looked good? That's all I want to know. I'm just gonna leave that back there so that we can all appreciate its ugliness. Next question. How do you do that amazing cough? Okay, this is an actual lesson. You've clicked on this video because you want to learn how to cough, and just be ready for your throat to be absolutely trashed. So there's two types of coughs that I like to do. There's more of a guttural cough, and then there's more of a surface cough. The guttural cough, you have to put your whole body and soul into it. Think of it as coming from your intestines almost. It's a deep, raspy, grotesque cough, you know? As you can see, you have all the flavors of cough in there. You have all the semitones. Honestly, that one takes some practice. The second cough, it's a surface cough, and it's probably the funniest one. I like to think that the force comes right from here. Let me give you a demonstration. You see? It's like the little sister to the guttural cough. Anyways, next question. Are you beating the devil out of your paintbrushes, Joanna? Where did you come up with cookies for subscribers? Simple. I wanted to eat cookies. I see that a lot of people are doing this cookies for subscribers thing now, and honestly, do it. It's so much fun. Let's get fat together. What's the best species of bird? The blue-footed booby. Have you ever seen anything more majestic than a blue-footed booby? Peacocks? No, get out of here. Flamingos? What are you even doing? What inspired you to start a YouTube channel? Also, hi, and I think you're great. I've already addressed this in another video. I started my YouTube channel because I was injured, but I wanted to do something for self-expression, you know? I felt like I had a lot of thoughts, and I just couldn't tell them to anyone. So here I am telling them to my phone. If you're looking to start a YouTube channel,
Do it! Just do it! Just do it!
I know literally every single YouTuber tells you to just start a YouTube channel if you want to, but I'm serious, do it. I was in your position 3 months ago. I was watching videos and I was like,
Everyone's telling you to start a YouTube channel, and I'm just not gonna do it because I'm never gonna get this big.
you never know what's gonna happen. And I mean that in every possible way. I feel like YouTube right now is pushing out a bunch of new creators. So just jump on it. What is your biggest pet peeve? People that eat loudly. I can't stand it. I hate it so much. It's so disgusting. Stop it! Get some help! What's the best part about being a YouTuber? Oh, it's so amazing. It's so great. I have so much YouTube money. Huh. I beg to differ. Nothing's really changed. Like, I still go to school, you know? I still work out. I still do homework. Don't worry, I haven't even monetized my videos yet. I don't know how to do it, so someone please call me and help me, because I'm sister struggling. Thank you very much. Next question. What is your favorite Vine? Thank you for asking me the real questions. That is not correct. Because according to the encyclopedia, my question is, has any of your friends or anyone from school found your channel? How did they react? I didn't tell anyone at my school that I started my YouTube channel. They all found out eventually, and they were very supportive, which I am very grateful for. I can't imagine going to school and just being shamed for having a YouTube channel. I mean, honestly, if you don't like my YouTube channel, that's fine, because I know I can't satisfy everyone. People are always looking for someone to hate. So if it really makes your day, dislike this video and leave as many hate comments as you can. What age do you want to die? 69. How have you been without The Office? 'Cause trust me, I can feel your pain. I'm in limbo. Oh, honey, I'm suffering. I've started watching Jessica Jones on Netflix, and I know I said I'm not really that big of a fan of, like, Marvel and superhero movies, but I have to say, Jessica Jones, they did a pretty good job on that TV show. Another one, The Punisher. If you're looking for blood, and I mean lots and lots of blood, watch The Punisher. It is, quite something. Over the years, I've kind of lost my mind, and I feel like I've been living vicariously through violent TV shows. So I've, like, grown fond of very violent TV shows, whether they're good or not. For example, The Walking Dead. It's absolute trash, but I watch it just because of the violence. I'm going crazy. So when I saw The Punisher, I was extremely taken aback. Like, I was shocked. Highly recommend it if you're into really violent stuff. What's the worst you've seen someone screw up on social media? Between Logan Paul, FouseyTube, and probably Rice Gum, there's just too much to choose from. You know, it's kind of overwhelming. But at the same time, I don't want to call anyone out, because watch me be the next one to just completely mess up on social media. What if you find some of my past racist tweets? Even though I literally made a Twitter 3 days ago and I have 4 tweets. But you never know. Like, people these days, they go hunting and they will find something really big. I hope that no one finds anything on me. I mean, I think... okay. What is the ugliest thing you own? How do I become thick like you? Do you want the real advice, honey? Guess what? You can't.
No one will ever be as thick as me, and I mean...
God damn it. How do you get away with probably eating 1,000 cookies and still not getting fat? I think I have to come clean here. I don't eat all the cookies. My parents help me. Also, the week after I eat all those cookies, it's kind of like models getting ready for the runway type of thing. You know, I just don't eat anything. For your Q&A, what's the best way to deal with too much homework? Feed it to your dog. Eat it yourself. Burn it. I'm kidding. Do your homework, kids, and stay in school. Yes or no? Are you gonna make YouTube a full-time thing? You should, by the way, because you're amazing. No, I'm a child of Jesus, and I'm gonna stay in school. But yes, I plan on getting a job. I'm not gonna stop with YouTube, but YouTube's not gonna last forever. You know, I have to have plan B, so I'm gonna have to get a job, unfortunately. Have you ever worn braces before because your teeth are so satisfyingly straight and perfect? I'm jealous. Thank you. Yes, I did wear braces. My braces journey was very tumultuous. First, I had an expander, and that was in, like, grade 2. And then I got braces only on the 4 front teeth. Then I had a retainer until grade 6. And finally, I got braces on everything. Lots of pain and suffering here, sweetheart. Those were my teeth beforehand. And then, oh my god, I kept my expander. If you're wondering how this works, it goes like in the back of your mouth, and it continuously pushes your teeth apart, I think, or brings them together. Anyways, it does something, and it hurts a lot. I wonder if this still fits. No, I'm not doing that. And these were my 4 front braces. Why did I keep this? I have no idea. What video editing program do you use? iMovie. Honestly, you don't need Final Cut Pro. I'm probably never gonna get Final Cut Pro just because it's too complicated for me. I can barely turn on my computer. Using iMovie is a chore. Do you have a boyfriend or a girlfriend? No. And I don't want one. The last thing I need right now is a boy bringing me down. And to be honest, I have very high standards. You have to be over 6 foot. You have to be intelligent, funny, but not funnier than me. You also have to have a better six-pack than I do, so start doing sit-ups, honey. And you also have to think that everything I do is right. When I grow up, if I have a son, that's not okay. We have to have a daughter. How old are you? I'm 17 and a quarter. Are you excited because you're growing so fast? Honestly, it hasn't processed yet. Do you swim or run track with a team? I used to swim with a team, but then I quit. And now I run with a team. But I'm not going to tell you their name because I don't want to get kidnapped. So, put the gun down. Are you God? I'm Satan. How do you feel about tomatoes? This is important. What's your height and weight? I'm 5'4" and 1/8. Yes, the 1/8 counts because when you're 5'4", every spare centimeter is important. And I weigh 100 pounds. Do you consume crack? Or do you sniff it? I shove it up my ass. Where is your family when you film? Because in your videos it seems like you live alone.
I lock them up.
No, I'm kidding. I'm not ready at all to live by myself. My parents just aren't in the room when I film. I don't know, I'm not comfortable filming in front of them. Next question. Favorite YouTuber? Chris Fleming is incredibly underrated. His whole Gale series cracks me up so much. Like, it's kind of sad that he's not, like, in the millions, because he definitely deserves it.
Let's check him out. I bet he's in the millions now. Where's Joana at? She's like killing 1.2. Jeez Louise. What'd you say his name was? Chris what?
Fleming? I'm not comfortable filming him.
Chris. Okay. I'll check you out later.
In front of them. Next question. Favorite YouTuber? Chris Fleming is incredibly underrated. His whole Gale series cracks me up so much. Like, it's kind of sad that he's not, like, in the millions, because he definitely deserves it. He puts so much effort into his videos. What's your favorite color of ice cream? Not flavor, color. Pink. Do you regret cutting your hair? No. Best decision of my life. And every single person I meet, I tell them, you need to cut your hair yourself. Stop wasting money and going to the hair salon. Just do it yourself. Are you still planning on going to college? Yes, I am. I'm not going to drop out of school. It doesn't matter how successful I get on YouTube. First of all, my parents would kill me if I just didn't go through with an education. So I'm definitely going to keep going with school. I'm probably going to pursue something in physics and like astronomy. Why? How? Who, what, where, when, and why? The 5 W's of essay writing. How do you wax your legs without screaming? And how do you plan on making 1 million cookies for your 1 million subscribers? I used to get my legs waxed professionally. It was never really that painful, and the thing is, I don't really have that high of a pain tolerance. It's just, don't overthink it. That's my advice. Just go for it, you know? Listen to music, that helps a lot. For the cookies question, I do plan on making 1 million cookies when I hit 1 million subscribers, okay? I'm gonna need all the help I can get, but don't worry. That video will come when I hit 1 million subscribers. Well, if I hit 1 million subscribers. Let's not jinx it here. If animals could talk, which one would you have a conversation with? A squid. When's the last time you screamed at the top of your lungs? Headphone users, beware. How the heck did you get 300,000 subs in less than a week? I don't know what happened, but I saw all your vids in one day. You see, here's the thing. I'm kind of in a little shady deal with YouTube at the moment, so I can't really talk about it. But once I kill everyone at YouTube headquarters and I take over the world, I'll spill all the tea, honey. Where's your favorite place to run? In the middle of the road. On the highway, in fact. I can outrun all the cars, in case you're wondering. I run at 1,000 kilometers an hour. Not even an exaggeration. This is not hyperbole. Oh, and where did you get your glasses from? You know my glasses, they're like for prescription purposes. They're not for fashion. I got these glasses 2 years ago, and I'm really blind. My prescription is -4, so if I don't wear my glasses, I'm going to step on something. The lenses, I don't know if you can even see, but they don't even fit the frame correctly. That's how blind I am. I can't even see the camera from this far away. What do you think of the relatable YouTubers trend? YouTubers like you, Antonio Garza, Emma Chamberlain, trending and growing rapidly. I'm glad you asked this question. because sooner or later I would have to address it. I think a lot of it has to do with the state of YouTube right now. I feel like high production quality type of content was very popular in like 2010 to 2012, and I feel like people are just kind of getting tired of it. So I think that's why the relatable YouTuber trend has started to kind of blow up a bit. But also, I feel like this brand of YouTuber, we have to be very careful because we can't rely on editing to make ourselves funny. I looked through my videos a while back, and especially my older videos, I did draw a lot of inspiration from YouTubers like Emma and Antonio, and I feel like I was abusing the editing, so I'm definitely trying to cut back on the editing. After all, editing is supposed to complement what you're doing, not take over it. Also, another point, I feel like relatable YouTubers are not going to last long. I don't think I'm going to be here as long as Shane Dawson was. I mean, I hope I am, but I'm not too sure about it. I feel like us relatable YouTubers, we appeal to a very young generation, and once we grow up, we're not going to be cracking jokes about school, moms, getting fat. You know, we're all gonna have lives of our own. So I'm really interested to see where this kind of evolves. Anyways, that's my little TED Talk. Domino's or Papa John's? It's DiGiorno! Do you watch Netflix? If yes, then what is your favorite series? My favorite series, probably not heard of it, it's called Dark. It's originally a German series, but they dubbed it in English. The storytelling is impeccable. I've never seen a TV show that could have so many characters and still have a really good storyline. Usually TV shows, for example, Stranger Things or Riverdale, which I hate. You get too confused and you can't keep up with the story. Dark can actually do that, and the story itself is about this man who abducts children and sends them back in time. He created his own time machine and he literally sends them back in time. I feel like sci-fi has become really repetitive, but this is the only sci-fi series that I actually found was quite original. I highly recommend it. It's definitely not something that you can just like play and do your homework to, because it requires a lot of focus. Would you rather suck your left or right toe? There's too many options! Hit me, bitch. I'm sorry, I really don't like swearing on this channel. I know I swore in the last video, and I'm honestly really sorry about it. I didn't like it, and I'm never gonna do it again. What's your favorite shape of pasta? The one that goes like this. Would you ever move to LA? I don't want to shade anyone here, and I'm really not here to spill the tea, but I will never move to LA. Hold me to that one, okay? When I move out, I'm gonna move out to the middle of nowhere, and I'm serious about that. I'm gonna buy a house in the thickest, fattest forest you can find. No one can contact me for miles. And I will buy 4 dogs. I will learn to cook my own food so that when the apocalypse hits, zombies who, you know, they'll never find me. I'll be the one to find them. I'm gonna be the real threat. I'm gonna be why the apocalypse happens. Ever killed someone? Do you like Harry Potter? And if so, which house are you in? I am obsessed with Harry Potter. I read the entire book series. I've never taken one of those quizzes that are like, which house are you in? I don't know, it's kind of weird to me, you know? But anyways, the point of the story is I was extremely obsessed with Harry Potter when I was in like grade 2. Which toe is your favorite? This one. If a tomato was a person, what would be their profession? A librarian. A minion or Shrek? If you could eliminate one of the two, who would you send to the pits of hell? Why are we doing Shrek dirty? Like, I don't understand this. Can we even draw a comparison between a minion and Shrek? Who are you people? Have you ever drank alcohol or smoked weed? Just wondering if you do edgy teen things. I've never been to a high school party. It's really embarrassing. Alcohol and those types of things, I honestly don't understand how teens can stomach alcohol. Like, obviously I've tried it, you know, I've done one of these, you know, like a type of thing. I don't understand how people can like alcohol. It doesn't taste good. That being said, what? I'm just gonna leave that there for moral support. How do you feel about your sudden rise in fame? I don't think I'm famous. If you think about it, at the moment there's about like 400,000 of you. There's 7 billion people on this planet, you know? 400,000 is not a lot. I'm still grateful for everyone who subscribed, like don't get me wrong, but I don't think I'm famous. Will you make merch? I've been thinking about it. If I do ever make merch, I don't want to make clothing, you know? I want to make something that you'll actually use, like a mug or something, or a backpack, or sunnies. Like, if everyone could rock these sunnies, that would be incredible, you know? Like, that would just be enough for me already. What are you gonna be for Halloween? Have you had your first kiss yet? Excuse you? No, honey. I will only have my first kiss after I'm married, okay? No, in fact, after I have kids, that's when I'm gonna have my first kiss. Do you ever wonder who was the first person to smoke weed? Like, who was the first person to say, oh, look at this plant, I'm gonna light it on fire and inhale it? Sometimes I wonder who was the first person to eat food. How did they go from feeling hungry to being like, I need to eat food, you know? How many people died before they realized that they had to eat food to survive? Would you ever have thought you would have grown this much in a short amount of time? No. I was shook when I had 10, and I lost my mind when I got 100. So 400,000, it's not even registered yet. Finished. Darn it! Anyways, that's the video, everyone. Thank you for watching. Thanks for subscribing. I love you guys an unhealthy amount, and please burn this image into your heads. If I didn't get to your question, I'm really sorry. Trust me, I read at least 1,000 questions, trying to just find the ones that were the best.
Wow, man. Some of the best thing right there. Keeping it fresh. Oh, yeah, I think so. Turn on. Exhausting.